Hey YouTube, what's up? Dr. T here from St. Petersburg, Florida. So today, on Live Coding Part 1, I'll be introducing Gridworld, a project I'm currently working on. Gridworld is a topic in reinforcement learning taught as part of the UBC's, that is University of California, Berkeley, course CS 188, An Introduction to Artificial Intelligence. In Lecture 10, the topic of reinforcement learning and Q-learning is introduced. What you can see here is the grid that is produced from the code for operating in the Gridworld project. The screen, stopped partway through the lecture, shows an intermediate state in training of the agent, where the agent has been moved by hand by the lecturer through the grid world, has picked up rewards, and has back recursively moved them through the grid. Now, this is the point we will be striving to get to by the end of the coding exercise I'm currently involved in. Today, I'm going to pick up my grid world graphics and teach you how to code the grid itself. So the graphics on the screen is my grid world, what happens when I run the grid and it presents the graphic on the screen. And what we're going to be going through today is the code for you to be able to reproduce this, or at least learn the premise behind how to go about coding it such that you can do your own. And that's the whole purpose of this, not to copy my code, but understand how the coding works such that you can go about doing your own code. Because you really have to gut it through this. You just can't copy and paste. You've got to go through from scratch like I would have to. If I started all over again, it takes a long time and put it together. Now, the zeros that we see on this graph are brought in from a function called defQtable, which is set up as an NP array, so I can actually see what's going on in there. And the first thing to do is to go through how one codes up this NP array. So there are 11 states on this grid here, and first of all we're just going to print out the NP array. So we're going to have L is 11, that's the number of states there are. Y is 5. It's 5 because we are carrying an extra ordinate for the value of the state that it's in, that these represent. The coding line, whatever handle you want, here it's self SR, NP zeros, XY, and we're leaving the object type, the data type to object, because we need to be able to put in some values as a float and some values as an int. And with it set to object, the values will default to int. So we can see zeros here and not 0 point something. So that gets us the starting array. So now we'll put in the S. And my picture went away. And we're going through the range, which is going to put out the numbers that we want to represent the various states from 1 through 11. We'll be bringing this in as a slice, which tells it to put those numbers, X, in these positions, and have everything else as a float. So everything after the first position is a float, because we want those to be floats. We're going to designate so this line self SR X0 equals S is the first line of the code, first line of the array. That's element 0, we want to put S in, which is going to loop over 1 to 11. And in so doing, we will be deprecating that value, and we're going to be putting in a 1. Let's get the grid back up. Oh, it'll just go away again. I'll just do this first. Let's get the grid back up. So we're going to putting a 1 in the grid at this position, which represents the green reward, and a -1 where the red reward is in this position. So if we run the code, we get our grid out. Bring that back. So now this is our array that is going to hold all of our data, and I've put it up here as an array because I just want to see it. Ultimately, somewhere down the road, it might just be put in as a list for convenience in terms of coding. So depending on how familiar you are with object-oriented coding, with the class type, in order to get the code to run, we have to identify the class. This is just standard. So data equals Gridworld, and we need to activate it. We need to do print, in Python anyway, print data.grid, the name of the function that we're running. So let me just briefly go through the code. So to code, let's put up what we've got, then you need to see what you're dealing with. So this part is just going to code our interface for working through. So we want, traditionally you have to, well, let me back up a bit. We need the coding environment is tkinter, and a library within Python. And traditionally you put a handle on tkinter. You don't need to do that, I suppose, but it's traditional, and I just follow right along. So we're going to self-root tkinter. The code to give us that black box there is to self-root, which will be tkinter, bring in the coding environment, canvas, bg equals black is the background color, and this is the height and the width. And if you change these, it will change. And this silly name canvas, I had canvas in here, but my PyCharm threw up some interference, so I just changed it. It's a silly thing, and it probably doesn't need to be done anyway. So we need to self-pack that such that we can express it, and this other information here is not pertainably important at the moment, and we'll be self-packing it at the bottom of here as well. Eventually we will. So we've just run that. Self-pack just says, show me what this code represents visually. Now we're going to be building up the Gridworld graph here, and I'll just go through these one at a time. We'll put in our first line, and if we run the code, we'll see nothing. See nothing because, oh, we are getting it. So there we go. So there's our current framework. And let's go through the line. We're going to use the code. Q values is what I'm representing to call this. So up above self-canvas, and we go into the element .create rectangle 30 30 460 470 360 fill green. Next we'll be putting a line around the perimeter here, and I have this situated at the bottom of the code. So once again, one of the features that we had was create line, and once again, in the case of a line, you take the same coordinate situation where the x is and where the y is, and draw it to where the x is and where the y is, and fill it with the color, and width sets the thickness of the line. So we'll just run this off here to see that. Here we go. So we now have a thick line. Now the rest of this code is just going to be putting the same thing around the canvas that we're going to be working on, which you can kind of work out. Come on. So when we've put those in, we've got a line all the way around here. Now, all of the other lines on here, the cross lines and everything, they're actually built up from building up one of these little triangles. So we're going to show you one of these triangles, and this is going to be a line where in the terms of drawing the triangle, we start, it's a 1, 2, 3, 4 item move. So it goes 1, 2, 3, 4. That's how the triangle is drawn. So let's pop the triangle up and we'll go through that again. So here we have one of the triangles popped up. And you can look back at this line. So 30 is the X direction, 250 is the Y point. It's going to move out here. That will be 140 on X and still 250 on Y. Then the next is 85 on X, so we'll be coming down here, and 305 on Y, and then completing the triangle back up to 30 on X and 250 on Y, and we're filling that in as white and a smaller dimension on the width of the line too. That will bring in these white lines everywhere. Now these rectangles are going to be set black because in the course of running the algorithm we want to change the color of these rectangles as the data is recursively moved through the grid. So the next line here, which I'll just put in now, and then we'll go through it, puts that black triangle in there. So let's take a look at that. Now the black triangle is different because it's a polygon and not a line. So like in the case of the rectangle, a polygon is the coding that enables you to draw structures in any variable space that you want, depending on how many joints in the line, what structure you want to build. In this case, we've got a grid that is 30 to 50 starting here, 140 to 50 to here, 85 305 to there. Oh, I beg your pardon, I'm looking at the wrong thing. Let me no, I'm right. My bad. It's the same. The dimensions of that grid are the same because they're drawing creating a polygon that's a rectangle. So for one of these units, the dimensions are the same. One is black and one is white. So we'll do the same for the other dimensions in that little lower box down here, and we'll fill that in. So now I've unblocked that code. So if we run the rest of this, we'll get our unit in. Move this over. So that's our unit. There's one more piece to go through. Well, there's two actually. This self SR101 is the data that we're getting from the array, which is putting that data in the position we want it on the chart. And the other line is that we need to be able to put in the 0, 0 as text. This holds the number. This is the text statement. So you'll do create text from that other area and you'll put it in the same. Now I have an offset here. I'm just using some variables to create the offsets. So these are just the offsets that I'm going to be employing in building this framework. And those things you just have to work with. It's tedious, but you have to work with it. So the line would be the offset, because we're moving this in from the side to a specific point. And in order to achieve that, in order to put this number in there, the coding is text equals self SR and this unit here, followed by font, and I happen to have this descriptor in here, and what are we missing? Followed by white. So that is the basic whole element of putting one of these in, and then it's just repeated down throughout the whole of this little unit. The rest of it is just more or less the same, and it's just a labour of love, putting in all of these units, which you're going to have to leg through anyway. You're going to have to learn to do it. It's just takes time, takes a lot of time. So I'm just going to, I won't go through unblocking all of these. Well, actually I will, because we want to see it before I put the other elements in. So let me unblock all of these and I'll come back. So I've unblocked all of these, and we go to where we are now. So this is what we've got, having put all of those respective positions in. And now we're going to fill in this with a grey, in this with a red, and then with this the green. So I can pretty much do that on the fly. They're at the top here. So in with the grey. We put the grey in there. In with the red. We put the red in there. In with a little box inside of there. A little box inside of there. And in that little box inside of the green. Put that in there. And one other coding element is the agent, which I happen to have at the bottom here. So there we are, from start to finish, how you create this step by step. And this once again, after the canvas, you have the create oval and the coordinates for the oval. Let's go through the coordinates for the oval. 70 in the x direction, 290 down in the y direction. That's first point. 100 down in the x direction and 320 in the y direction, and I filled it in with cyan. So that's how that gets put in there. So we'll make this code available for you, and we'll go through the procedure of doing this. Why not? It's a live session. Live sessions take a lot of time occasionally. So it's not going to be something that it'll do in 5 minutes. If you try to do this yourself, it'll take you days probably. Took me a long time, that's for sure. So we're going to give you the code. So we'll call this, what it is, it's a grid. So we'll call it GW underscore grid. Underscore grid.py. So that will be that one segment isolated. So we don't want that in here. We're going to find the code, which is not in my developer file, it's in this file here. We're going to get all of this code, so it's not like, oh, Hatfield, you did all that wonderful stuff for us, but now we've got to leg it through all the hard work. Well, you should leg it through all the hard work, but the code is going to be here for you to just lift off. In part so you can just play with it. You can change things around, see what happens, rather than have to spend hours and hours and hours getting to that point. But you ultimately will have to obviously do your own stuff. So that's in here. Now, it works just the same. Up comes our thing. So we're now going to go and put it into my GitHub. So let's have some fun wandering around in my world. Over to my GitHub. We're in something else here. Whoa, let's get into my GitHub. Go into my Gridworld. Go into my code. And there's some other stuff in here. You actually got all of the code in here, but you know, you just need to focus on one thing at a time for the moment. So we're going to upload the file. Choose the file. And it's somewhere on my, it's in users, down to PyCharm, open up PyCharm, come down to reinforcement learning, open up Gridworld, And there we have it. That's what we've just put in for you, so you can get that code. So we'll upload that, make commitments. It comes in, we go find it. Where's that Gridworld? There it is. And there you have the code. That's what we've just been through. Here's all the code. So you can now go copy and paste all this lot, and you can fiddle around with it, and you can use it as a backdrop to just build your own, whatever you want to do, whatever you're interested in. Here it is. So this is part one. The only other thing I can teach you right now is how to move the agent, and that will be, once again, a very, very long session, as it's quite complicated. So if you found this helpful, useful, enjoyed it, please give me a like. Better still, subscribe, because I'll be adding various elements as we go through me learning how to do this right to the very end and uploading into this what is it? Oh, I'll sure be uploading it into my playlists. So what I had in here I took out, so here's the playlist. There's nothing in there. I'll be shortly putting this in there, and then you'll have access to this video through there. So yeah, that's it. Hope you find it interesting, hope you find it useful, I hope you like the series, and come join me for the rest over the course of whatever time it takes me to complete this thing. Thank you.